Hello, buddy. This is part four of Wallace Thurman's The Black of the Berry. It was necessary. Sorry, we're starting on page 36. It was necessary for his future that he make as much money as possible in a short amount of time as possible. Emma Lou saw the logic of this and agreed that it was the best possible scheme until she realized that it meant his going away from Boise or Boys, perhaps forever. Oakland, California was to be his headquarters, and he, being a new man, would not have a regular run. It was possible that he might be sent to different sections of the country. Sorry. Every time he made a trip, there was no way of his knowing before he reported for duty just where he might be sent. It might be Bose, or Palm Beach, or Albany, or New Orleans. One never knew. But that was the life. That was the life of the road, and one had to accept it in order to make money. It made Emily shiver to hear him talk so dispassionately about the matter. There seemed to be the least note of regret in his voice, the least suggestion he had that he hated to leave her or that he would miss her. And for the first time since the night of their physical union, Emily began to realize that perhaps, after all, he did not feel toward her as she did toward him. He couldn't possibly love her as much as she loved him, and at the same time remained so unconcerned about having to part from her. There was something unexpected, something radically wrong here, something conclusive and unexpected which was going to hurt her, going to plunge her back into unhappiness once more. Then she realized that not once had he ever spoken of marriage or even hinted at that the relationship would continue indefinitely. Hello, hello. Sorry, just making sure. He had said that he loved her. He had treated her kindly and had seemed thrilled about the over thrilled as she over their physical context. But now it seemed that since he was no longer going to be near her, no longer going to need her body, he had forgotten that he loved her. It was then that all the old preachments of her mother and grandmother were resurrected and began to swirl around through her mind. Hadn't she been warned that men don't marry black girls? Hadn't she been told that she would only use her for her sexual convenience? That was the case with Weldon. She had taken up with her own with her only because he was a stranger in the town and lonesome for a companion. And she, like a damn fool, had submitted herself to him. And now she was about to better his condition, about to go to some place where he would have a wider circle of acquaintances. She was to be discarded and forgotten. Thus Emily reasoned to herself and grew bitter. It never occurred to her that the matter of her color had never once entered the mind of Weldon. Not once did she consider that he was acting towards her as he would have acted toward any girl under similar circumstances, whether her face had been white, yellow, brown, or black. Emma Lou did not understand. Emma Lou did not understand that Weldon was just the selfish, normal man, and not a color prejudiced one. At least not while he was resident in community where the girls were few, and there were none of his college friends about teasing him for liking dark meat. She did not know that for over a year he had been traveling about from town to town, always seeking a place where money was more plentiful and more easily saved, and that in every town he managed to find a girl or girls who made it possible for him to continue his grind without being totally deprived of pleasurable moments. To Emma Lou, there could only be one reason for his not having loved her as she had loved him. She was a black girl. and no professional man could afford to present such a wife in the best society. It was a tragic failure of her life once more asserting itself. There could be no happiness in life for any woman whose face was as black as hers. Unbelieving this more intensely than ever before, than ever before, Emma Lou yet felt she must manage in some way to escape both home and school, that she must find happiness somewhere else. The idea her Uncle Joe had given her about the provinciality of people in small towns re entered her mind. After all, Los Angeles, too, was a small town mentally. People by mentally small southern Negroes. It was no better than Boise. She was now determined to go east, where life was more cosmopolitan and people more civilized. To this end, she begged her mother and uncle to send her to east to school. Can't you ever be satisfied? Now, Jane. Joe, as usual, trying to keep the peace. Now, Jane, nothing. I never saw such an ungrateful child. I'm not ungrateful. I'm just unhappy. I don't like that school. I don't want to go there anymore. Well, you go there or stay home. Thus, Jane entered the discussion and could not be persuaded to reopen it. And rather than remain home, Emma Lou returned to Los Angeles and spent another long, miserable, uneventful year in the University of Southern California, drawing more and more within herself and becoming more and more bitter. When vacation time came, she got herself a job as a maid in a theater. Rather than return home and study stenography during her spare hours, school began again, and Emily re entered with more determination than ever to escape should the chance present itself. It did, and once more Emily fled into an unknown town to escape the haunting chimera of intraracial color prejudice. Part 2. Harlem. Emma Lou turned her face away from the wall and quizzically squinted her pea like eyes at the recently closed door. Then, sitting upright, she strained her ears, trying to hear the familiar squeak of the impudent floorboards as John tiptoed down the narrow hallway toward the outside door. Finally, she had heard the closing click of the double barreled police lock. She climbed out of bed, picked up a brush from the bureau, and attempted to smooth the sensuous disorder of her hair. She had just recently had it bobbed, boyishly bobbed, because the thought of the she thought this style narrowed and enhanced the full some lines of her facial features. She never faced the mirror without speculating upon how good looking she might have been had she not been so black. Mechanically, she continued the brushing of her hair, stopping every once in a while to give it an affectionate caress. She was intensely in love with her hair, in love with its electric vibrancy and its unruly buoyance. Yet this morning she was irritated because it seemed so determined to remain disordered, so determined to remain a stubborn and unnecessary reminder of the night before. Why, she wondered, should one's physical properties always insist upon appearing awry after a night of stolen or forbidden pleasure? But not being anxious to find an answer, she dismissed the question from her mind and put on a stocking cap and jumped back into bed. She began to think about John, poor John who left, who felt so hurt because she had told him that he could not spend any more days or nights with her. She wondered if she should pity him, for she was certain that he would miss the nights more than he would the days. Yet she must not be too harsh in the conclusions, for after all, there had only been 2 nights, which she smiled to herself was a pretty good record for a newcomer to Harlem. She had just been in New York for 5 weeks, and it seemed like just a few days. 5 weeks, 35 days, and 35 nights. And of these nights, John had 2, and now he sulked because she would not promise him another. because she had, in fact, boldly told him that there could be no more between them. Mischievously, she wished now that she could have seen the expression on his face when, after seeming moments of mutual ecstasy, she made this cold manifesto like announcement. But the room had been dark, and so was John. Ugh. She had only written home twice. This, of course, seemed quite all right to her. She was not concerned about anyone there except her Uncle Joe, and he reasoned that since he was preparing to marry again, he would be far too busy to think much about her. All that worried her was the pitiful spectacle of her mother, her uncle, and her cousin trying to make up lies to tell inquiring friends. Well, she would write today, that is, if she did not start to work, and she must get up at 8 o'clock, which, was the alarm set, and hie herself to an employment agency. She had only $35 left in the bank, and unless it was replenished, she might have to rescind her vows to John in order to get the room rent paid. She must go to sleep for another hour, for she wished to look pert when she applied for a job, especially the kind of job she wanted. She must get the kind of job she wanted in order to show those people in Boise and Los Angeles that she had been perfectly justified in leaving school, home and all, to come to New York. They all wondered why she had come. So did she, now that she was here. But at the moment of leaving, she would have gone any place to escape having to remain in that hateful Southern California college, or having to face more dreaded alternative of returning home. Home? It had never been a home. It did seem strange bringing Harlem when, I mean, it did seem strange, this being Harlem, when only a few weeks before she had been over 3,000 miles away. Time and distance, strange things, immutable yet conquerable. This, was time conquerable? Hadn't she read or heard somewhere that all things were subject to time, even God? Yet once she was there, and now she was here. But even at that, she hadn't conquered time. What was the, what was that line in Cullen's verse? I run, but time's abreast with me. She had only traversed space and defied distance. This suggested a more banal, if a less arduous thought tangent. She had defied more than distance. She had defied parental restraint. Still, there hadn't been much of that friendly concern. There had been still less of that, and malicious, meddlesome gossip, of which there had been plenty. And she still found herself unable to understand why two sets of people in entirely two different communities should seemingly become almost hysterically excited because she, a woman of 21 and 3 years college training and ample sophistication in the ways of sex and self support, had decided to take a job as an actress maid in order to get to New York. They never seemed interested in her before. Now she wondered why she had been so painfully anxious to come to New York. She had been given a consoling reason to inquisitive friends and relatives' school, but she knew too well that she had no intentions of ever re entering school. She had enough of that school in Los Angeles, and her experiences there, more than anything else, had caused this foolhardy uh, Hiegrito, uh, Hiegra, Hegira to Harlem. She had been so desperately driven to escape, and had she not escaped in this manner, she might have done something else much more mad. And Malou closed her eyes once more and tried to supplement her mental reverie into a sleep inducing lullaby. Most of all, she wanted to sleep. One had to look pert, both when one saw the job, and she wondered if 8 o'clock would find her looking any more pert than she did at this precise present moment. What had caused her to urge John to spend what she knew would be his last night with her was that she was determined to be at her best the following morning. Oh, what the hell was the use? She was going to sleep. The alarm had not yet rung, but Emmylou was awakened gradually by the sizzling and the smell of fried and warmed over breakfast, by the raucous early morning wranglings and the window to window greetings, by the almost constant squeak of those impudent hall floorboards as the various people of her apartment raced one another to the kitchen or to the bathroom or to the front door. How could Harlem be so happily busy, so live and merry at 8 o'clock? 8 o'clock? The alarm rang. Emma Lou scudded out of bed and put on her clothes. An hour later, looking as pert as possible, she entered the first employment agency. Excuse me. She came on 135th Street between Lenox and 7th Avenues. It was her first visit to such an establishment, and she was particularly eager to experience this phase of a working girl's life. Her first 4 weeks in Harlem had convinced her that jobs were easy to find, for she had noticed that there were 3 or 4 employment agencies to every block in business Harlem. Assuring herself in this way, she would experience little difficulty obtaining a permanent and tasty position. Emma Lou had abruptly informed Mademoiselle Lindsay that she was leaving her employ. But child, her employer had objected, I feel responsible for you. Your mother. Don't be preposterous. How can you remain in New York alone? Emma Lou had smiled, asked for her money once more, closed her ears to all protests, bid the chagrined woman goodbye, joyously loafed for a week. Now, with only $35 left in the bank, she thought that she had best find a job, and then finish seeing New York. Of course, she had seen much already. She had seen John, and oh damn John, she wanted a job. Oh, what could I do for you? The harassed woman at the desk was trying to be polite. I want a job. Ring, 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 ring. The telephone insistently petitioned for attention, giving Emmylou a moment of respite, while the machine-like woman wearily shouted monosyllabic answers into the instrument, and at the same time tried to hush the many loud-mouthed men and women in the room, all, it seemed, trying to outtalk one another while waiting. Emma Lou surveyed her fellow job seekers. Seedy lot was her verdict. Perhaps I should have gone to a more high-tone place. Well, this will do for the moment. What kind of job do you want? I prefer, Emma Lou had rehearsed these lines for a week, a stenographic position in some colored business or professional office. Any experience? No, but I took 2 courses in business college during school vacations. I have a certificate of competency. Any reference? No New York ones. Where'd you work before? I just came to the city. Where'd you come? And ring, ring, ring. That telephone mercifully reiterated its insistent blare, and for a moment kept that pesky woman from droning out more insulting queries. Now she had finished again. Where'd you come from? Los Angeles. What kind of work would you take? Anything congenial. Wow. What is that? Dishwashing, day work, nurse girl? Didn't this damn woman know what congenial meant? And why should a Jewish woman be in charge of a Negro employment agency in Harlem? While girly, others waiting. I'll consider anything you may have on hand. If stenographic work is not available. Want a part-time job? I'd rather not. All right, sit down. I'll call you in a moment. What can I do for you, young man? Emmylou was dismissed. She looked for a place to sit down, and finding none, she walked across the narrow room to the window, hoping to get a breath of fresh air, and at the same time, an advantageous position from which to watch the drama of someone else playing the role of a job seeker. Ring, ring, ring. What do you want? Wait a minute. Oh, Sadie. A heavy-set, dark brown skinned woman with full flopping breasts and extra wide buttocks squirmed off a too narrow chair. Off too narrow chair. and bashfully wobbled to the desk. Want to go to a place on West End Avenue? Part-time cleaning, 50 cents an hour, 9 rooms. Yeah? All right. Hello? Got a girl on the way. Bye. Two and a half. Sadie, here's the address. Run along now. Don't idle. Ring. Low, yes? What? Come down to the office. I can't sell jobs over the wire. And Malou began to see the humor in this sordid situation. Begun to see something extremely comic in all these plaintive, pitiful appearing colored folks. Some greasy, some neat, some fat, some slim, some brown, some black. Why was there only one mulatto in this crowd? Boys and men, girls and women, all single filing up to the desk, laconically answering laconic questions, impertinently put, showing thanks or sorrow or indifference as their case is warranted, paying off properly or else seeking credit, while the Jewish overseer of the dirty, dingy office asserted and reasserted her superiority. Some on the outside pushed hard on the warped door. Protestingly, it came open, and the small, scuffy room was filled with the odor and presence of a stout black lady dressed in a greasy gingham house dress, still damp in the front from splashing dishwater. On the head was a tight turban, too round for the rather long outlines of her head. Beneath this turban could be seen short and wiry strands of recently straightened hair. In her face, Emily sought to observe it more closely, sought to fathom how so much grease could gather on one woman's face, but her head reeled. The room was vile with noise and heat from and body smells, and this woman. Hi, Rosie. You're late. Got a job for you. The greasy faced black woman grinned broadly, licked her pork chop lips, and with a flourish, sat down in an empty chair beside the desk. Emma Lou stumbled over 3 pairs of number 10 shoes, pulled the open door, and fled into the street. She walked hurriedly for about 25 yards, then slowed down and tried to collect her wits. Telephone bells echoed in her ears. Sour smells infested her nostrils. Her nostrils. She looked up and discovered that she had paused in front of two garbage cans, waiting on the curbstone for the scavenger's truck. Irritated, she turned around and retraced her steps. There were few people on the street, and early morning work crowds had already been swallowed by the subway kiosk on Lenox Avenue, and it was too early for the afternoon idlers. Yet there was much activity, much passing to and fro. 135th Street, Emily mumbled to herself as she strolled along, how she had longed to see it, and what a different thoroughfare had she had imagined it to be. Her eyes sought the opposite side of the street and blinked at a line of monotonously regular fire escape decorated tenement buildings. She thanked whoever might be responsible for the architectural difference of the YMCA, for the streaming bit of 7th Avenue nearby, and for the arresting corner of the newly constructed teachers college building, which dominated the hill 3 blocks away, and cast its shadows on the verdure of the terrace park beneath. But she was looking more. But she was looking for a job. Sour smells assailed her nostrils once more. Rasping voices, pleading voices, tired voices, domineering voices, and the insisting ringing of the telephone bell all echoed in her head and beat against her eardrums. She must have staggered forward. A passing youth eyed her curiosity and shouted to no one in particular, "Oh no, now." Someone else laughed. They thought she was drunk. Tears blurred her eyes. She wanted to run, but resolutely, she kept her steady, slow pace, lifted her head a little higher, and seeing another employment agency, faltered for a moment, then went in. This agency, like the first, occupied the ground floor. ground floor front, front of a tenement house, 3/4 of the way between Lenox and 7th Avenue. It was cagey and crowded, and there was a great conversational hubbub as Emma Lou entered. And the rear of the room was a door marked private. To the left of this door was a desk littered with papers and index cards, before which was a swivel chair. The rest of the room was lined with a miscellaneous assortment of chairs, 3 rows of them, tied together and trying to be precise, despite their varying size and shapes. A single window looked out upon the street and the YMCA building opposite. All of the chairs were occupied. Sorry. And 3 people stood lined up by the desk. Emily fell at the end of this line. There was nothing else to do. In fact, all that she could do after entering. Oh, not another person could be found. Could have been squeezed into that room from the outside. This office tube was noisy, hot, and pregnant with clashing body smells. The buzzing electric fan in the corner over the desk, with all its whirring, could not stir up a breeze. The rear door opened. A slender, light brown skinned boy, with his high cheekbones decorated with black heads, his slender form accentuated by a tight fitting jazz suit of the high waistline, one button coat, belly bottom trouser variety, emerged smiling proudly, cap in one hand, a slip of pink paper in the other. He elbowed his way to the outside door and was gone. Must have got a job, somebody commented. It's about time, came from someone else. He said he'd been sitting here a week. The rear door opened again, and a lady with a youthful brown face and iron gray hair sauntered in and sat down on a swivel chair before the desk. Immediately, all talk in the outer office ceased. An air of anticipation seemed to pervade the room. All eyes were toward her. For a moment, she fingered a pack of red index cards. Then, as if remembering something, turned around in her chair and called out, "Miss Blake says for all elevator men to stick around." There was a shuffling of feet and settling back into chairs. Noticed this, Emily counted 6 elevator men and wondered if she was right. Again, the brown aristocrat with a tired voice spoke up. "Day workers come back at 1:30. Won't be nothing till then." 4 women, all carrying newspapers, packages, got out of their chairs and edged their way toward the door, murmuring to one another as they went, "I ain't fixing to come back. Ah, she keeps your hair. Kiar." They were gone. 2 of the people standing in line sat down. The third approached the desk and Maluk close behind. "I wants the what kind of job do you want?" Couldn't people ever finish what they had to say? "Porter or dishwashing, lady? Are you registered with us?" "No, have a seat. I'll call you in a moment." The boy looked frightened, and but he found a seat and slid into it gratefully. Emma Lou approached the desk. The woman's cold eyes appraised her. She must have been pleased with what she had saw, for her eyes softened and her smile reappeared. Emma Lou smiled too. Maybe she was pert after all. The terribly black suit. "What can I do for you?" The voice with the smile wins. Emma Lou was encouraged. "I would like sternographic work. An experience?" "Yes." It was so much easier to say than no. "Good." Emma held tightly to her underarm bag. "We have something that would just suit you. Just a minute, and I'll let you see Miss Blake." The chair squeaked and was eased of its burden. Emma Lou thought she had heard a telephone ring somewhere in the distance. Perhaps it was the clank of the streetcar that had just passed, heading for South 7th Avenue. The people in the room began talking again. "That last job, boy, she was dressed right down to the bricks. And I told them, yeah, we went to see Flesh and the Devil. Some party. And wait, I just been here a week. Emmylou's mind became jumbled with incoherent wisps of thought. Her left foot beat a nervous tattoo upon the sagging floor board. The door opened. The gray-haired lady with the smile and in her voice beckoned, and Emmylou walked into the private office of Miss Blake. Four people in the room. The only window facing a brick wall on the outside. Two telephones, both busy. A good looking young man fingered papers in a filing cabinet while he talked over one of the telephones. The lady from the outer office, another lady, short and brown, like butterscotch, talking over a high desk telephone and motioning for Emma Lou to sit down. Blur of high powered electric lights, brighter than daylight, but with the butterscotch lady hanging up the receiver. I'm through with you, young man. Crisp tones, metal warm in spite of itself. Well, I ain't through with you. The fourth person was speaking. Emma Lou had hardly noticed him before. Sullen face, dull black eyes, and watery sockets. The nose flat and lips thick and pouting. One man clutching a derby and the other clenched, bearing down on the corner of the desk. I have no intention of arguing with you. I said my say. Go on outside. When the cook's job comes in, you can have it. That's all I can do. No, it ain't all you can do. Well, I'm not going to give you your feedback. The lady from the outside office returns to her post, and the good looking young man is at the telephone again. Why not? I'm entitled to it. No, you're not. I send you on a job. The man asks you to do something, you walk out. Mr. Big I am. Then show up here 2 days later and you want your feedback? No, siree. I didn't walk out. The man says you did. Oh, sure, he'd say anything. I told him I came there to be a cook, not a waiter. It was your place to do as he said. Then, if not satisfied, then to come here and tell me so. I am here. All right, I'm tired of this. Either take two courses, go on outside and wait until the job comes in, or else go down to the license bureau and tell them your story. They'll investigate. If I'm right, you know I ain't you. You know you ain't right. Not according to you, no, but by law, yes. That's all. Telephone ringing, warm metal whipping words into it. The good-looking young man yawning. He looks like a YMCA secretary. The butterscotch woman speaking to Emma Lou. You're a stenographer? Yes. I have a job in a real estate office. Nice firm, nice people. Fill out this card. Here's a pen. Miss Blake, you know you ain't doing right. Why didn't this man either shut up or get out? I told you what to do. Now please do one or the other. You've taken up enough of my time. The license bureau. You know I ain't going down there. I'd rather you keep the fee if you think it'll do you any good. If only I only keep what belongs to me. I find out what's the best that I find out that's the best policy. Why should they want three people for reference? Where had she worked before? Lies. Los Angeles was far away. Then if a job comes in, you'll give it to me? That's what I've been trying to tell you. All right. And finally, he went out. Miss Blake grinned across the desk at Emmylou. Your folks won't do, honey. Do you have do you have many like that? The card was made out. Miss Blake had it in her hand. Telephones ringing both at once, loud talking in the outer offices. Lies. Los Angeles was far away. I can bluff. Blake had finished reading over the card. Just came to New York, huh? Yes. Like it better than Los Angeles? The good looking young man turned around and stared at her coldly. Now he did resemble a YMCA secretary. The lady from the outer office came in again. There was a triple crisscross conversation carried on. It ended. The short bobbed hair butterscotch boss gave Emma Lou instructions and information about her prospective position. She was half heard, $16 a week. Is that all? Works from 9 to 5. Address on card, corner of 139th Street, left side on the avenue. Dismissal. Smiles and good luck. Paid the lady outside $5. Awkward, flustered moments. Then at the entrance door in 135th Street once more, Emma Lou was on her way to get a job. All right, that's it for today for this part. What is this? Part 4, part 5, one of them. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'll continue on with the next part. All right, have a good day. God bless. Take care. Bye.